Welcome to the charity breakout session, charity engagement from a corporate perspective. We have a wealth of experience on our panel this afternoon. They're ready to share their unique insights into what corporates are looking for to maximise their relationships with charities. I'd like to introduce our panel, please. We've got Melissa Schultz, who's the General Manager of QIC Global Real Estate. Hi, Melissa, welcome. We've got Danielle Maxwell, Head of Philanthropy and Sustainability at Findex. Welcome, Danielle, from Queensland. And Shane Balderas from the Principal Community South 32. Hi, Shane, welcome.
Hi.
And we have Karen Wu, who's the Sustainability Manager from Vicinity Centres. So a fantastic panel today. And we're really looking forward to hearing the perspectives of yourselves as potential corporate partners and what you're looking for in your community partnerships. We'll explore some of those areas that are critical to establishing a successful community corporate partnership, such as governance, collaboration, alignment to theory of change and focus areas, impact measurement and evaluation. I'd like to start today to looking at governance and potentially direct this question to Danielle. Danielle, what are you looking for in a community partner's governance structures, and why is this important to corporates?
Thanks, Chris. I think for Findex and the Findex Community Fund, the partner charities that we look for really focus around our key focus areas, which are health, education and entrepreneurship. So for us, it's important to really see those values ingrained in the charities that we're hoping to connect with. It's also about, for us, the social impact that they might create, and therefore on forward to us as a sort of a corporate charity, let's just say. So for the Findex Community Fund, we're a DGR item 2, so we can only give to charities that are DGR item 1s, so that's a governance requirement. But it also means that for us as a charity, we give to other charities and not necessarily to the end recipient. So we really want to see the charities that we're supporting giving to people and creating a social impact that aligns really closely to our specific areas. So we have focus areas in health, education and entrepreneurship, but we also have a byline under that. So for instance, for health, it's around creating equal access to opportunity and improving the lives of patients and their carers. So we're really specific in what our mission is, and therefore we're really specific in what we look for from our partner charities.
Great. Shane, do you have anything that you'd add in terms of the governance that you'd be looking for in a community partnership?
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I mean, so yeah, we're a large mining company. We've got really strict ABC, anti-bribery, corruption and business integrity requirements. So yeah, typically for us, it's very much sort of starting with a vision and strategic plan of the partner, and then working through the number of the things that have already been mentioned, but particularly just looking at sort of the history of the organisation, the people who are in the leadership roles, and sort of where they've come from, and what sort of a past they have, and then we sort of really round out the ABC and business integrity assessments with a good look through the financial statements, and sort of check the the auditing that's been in place for those.
Great. Melissa, did you have anything you'd like to add to that? I can see you nodding there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, look, for me, I think around that governance structures piece, it's sort of the ability to show additionality, the ability to measure impact, and that really ensures partnership longevity, and that's good for everyone. So if I talk through that in a little bit more detail, I think for corporates, the concept of additionality is really about the additional impact that is being created through your contribution, and that's really important on having a productive community partnership. I think the idea of your contribution going into sort of a big bucket of funding towards the community partners programs and not being able to understand the change your contribution has driven is an idea that's really increasingly becoming outdated. And I guess if we first start with that idea of additionality and how they're all interconnected, I guess it's important for community organisations to be able to demonstrate what they're going to do with the corporate contribution. So you're essentially ring fencing the contribution and wanting to understand what change is going to be created. And additionality typically comes in two forms: being able to demonstrate further reach of delivery of the community partners' existing programs, or being able to co-design a program together to be rolled out. I think in order to understand that additionality, it's important to look for community partners with the ability to measure. So, you know, ideally the outputs and outcomes that are being generated. I think that's really important as organisations move from more of a traditional philanthropic one-way model to a true community investment model. And I think the other reason, if I think about sort of longevity, you know, sometimes a community investment program can be the first to suffer funding cuts in corporates if times get tough. But I think if you've been measuring the outcomes being achieved through the partnership and can demonstrate the change you've been creating, then those types of funding cuts become far less likely. And it's probably especially true when you're able to demonstrate and measure the value being created back to the corporate as well as the recipients of the community programs you're supporting. And that might sound a little odd, but I think it's really important part of moving from that traditional philanthropic model to a two-way community investment model, because if you're able to measure the value being created in the community as well as back to the supporting corporate, you're able to demonstrate, or you're able to achieve program longevity. You know, and I think when I talk about value back to the corporate, I mean beyond the feel-good factor. And it's really, you know, I think that's important. The longevity is important in terms of creating a long-term partnership, because as we all know, it can take a little while to start to see some of the change being created. So you need a couple of years at least to start to see some change being created.
Thanks, Melissa. I think that's a really important point, the measuring and of outcomes and impacts in your community partnership. It's critical for most companies. Shane, I'm just wondering if you potentially could give us any examples of what impact measurement corporates are looking for from their community partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, it's a really timely one for us. I mean, it's been in the last probably 2 years that we've developed a community investment impact measurement framework at South 32. I mean, so prior to that, yeah, absolutely could measure the inputs and outputs. There's a bit in there around the impact and outcomes, but it's really only been the last 2 years that we've got a really good framework up and running, implemented across all our community investment partners across the globe. I mean, I guess for us, sort of measuring the outcomes and impacts of our partnership is absolutely critical to achieving and living out the purposes of South 32, which is to make a difference by developing natural resources. And we're really working in our communities to improve people's lives now and for generations to come, and to be trusted where we operate, and particularly to be trusted by the people that own the resources of where we operate. And I thought, sort of, when we thought through our impact measurement framework and presented it to the senior leadership team and got the endorsement, it was really boiled down to 3 key reasons for implementing a impact and outcome framework. And that was really around, number one, help inform better decision making. So just have that evidence base to be able to say, okay, well, we really understand whether our programs are achieving the intended impact and outcome. Is it aligning with the community needs and priorities, and are they doing what they're set out to do? And that helps inform decisions around, do we continue that program, or do we divert the funding elsewhere? It says, we've got 4 key community investment themes. Are we invested in the right theme for that for that particular community? Number 2, definitely it's really helped in strengthening project design. So we can sort of break down each of the projects and sort of work out what's working well, what's not working well, and just use that sort of impact measurement framework or results theory of change, or sort of call it what you like, to really understand what's working well and what's not. And then third, another key driver has been around being able to better tell our story, both internally and externally. So internally, just really important that our employees have visibility of the impacts and outcomes from our community investment programs, and it's not only just a good feeling, a sense of pride, but it also enables them to identify where they can get involved in the programs, and helps engage employees. And I think, and also to the previous point, which is a great one, it really helps to to engage senior leadership, so that there's a really understanding of the the powerful impacts of the programs. And then externally as well with our stakeholders, it's a really key part to be able to communicate the strength of the programs. I think the question of what are we looking for, I think that's a really good question. I guess I'd start with saying, we don't expect everybody to be on the same page. It's the same as organisations like South 32 and other mining and resource sector companies. Everybody's on their own journey of impact and outcome measurement. If you came to us 3 years ago, we aren't where we are now. So we certainly don't expect all community partners to have all bells and whistles impact and outcome measurement framework in place and to immediately be able to plug into where we are. But what we do, what is important to us, is that our community partners are willing to work with us. In my experience, it's a lot of work to work up the impact measurement framework for particular programs with partners. So so we're definitely looking for that desire and willingness to go with us on the journey. We like, a really key learning for us has been around capability building, not just of our people, but also of community partners. So again, we'd be really keen to work with partners who are open to some sort of capability building. And then lastly on that, it's I think it's a conversation that you really have up front in the process of developing the partnership. I mean, for us, a really good community investment partnership is sort of sitting down and starting with the purpose of both organisations. For us, we look for the community need, we look for the business need, and where that sort of intersects is a good community investment program. So, for example, with education, there might be a demand for science, technology, engineering, and maths skills in the future in a certain community in Australia. But for us, that's a real interest to us to get more people with those skills into our workforce and our contractor workforce. So that's sort of potentially a good partnership. And then it's really a process of sitting down with the potential community partners and working through what that could look like. And then I think importantly, working through the impact measurement framework and really understanding what outcomes and impacts we want to achieve, but do that up front and write that into the agreement. So we'd really typically sort of work with our partners to get that in the agreement up front. And then lastly, make sure you've got it goes back a bit to the governance point at the beginning. Make sure you've got a really good governance process in place for reviews and check-ins and reporting and all that.
Great, thanks so much, Shane. Danielle, I believe this is something that you've been investing in more recently in terms of working through a new framework for your reporting. Are you able to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting, Chris, and I've taken down notes from what both Shane and Melissa have been saying, because I always find that when I connect with others that are doing a similar type of community program, that it's really valuable to hear from others and what they're doing. And for us in our community program, our Findex Community Fund is really quite new. The community fund has only been operational for 3 years, and we've now dispersed over $2 million. But for us, our partnership program has been very internal focused to start with. We have a network of staff in over 100 locations around Australia and New Zealand. And so our Findex Community Fund is really a way to be able to give back to all of those communities that we're connected to. And our partnership program is really at the cornerstone of that. So we want our charity partners to be reflective of that footprint that we have, but we also want it to be, obviously, back to what I said before with aligning to our focus areas, but we also want our people to really be able to engage and resonate with the partner charities that we have. So for us, it's around, what engagement are we able to seek from our charities so that our people can be engaged in the Findex Community Fund. For us, that's been one of our top priorities, because we tend to find if our people are engaged in what we're doing, then they'll tell our client base and our network of communities and so forth. So we sort of start from the internal outwards. And, similar to what Shane said at the end there, a governance process that reviews that. I mean, we as we introduce new things, and we might touch on this a little bit later, I'm sure, but as we're introducing new initiatives, it's about, okay, well, how can our existing partner charities engage with this? Does this align? So for instance, we launched a financial literacy program called Young Money. It's basically an online toolkit for young people for the basic financial literacy type information, how to set up a tax file number, how to set up a bank account, those types of things. And then our partner charities that were based in the educational focus area sort of are able to connect with that. It's something that they're then able to share with their grant recipients and donation recipients. So for us, it's really, how can we engage with what we have available with our partner charities? And that's really what we check. It'll track, I should say, and that also aligns back to the social impact that we're making. So that's really what we're tracking with our impact at the moment.
Fantastic. It's a really good segue into talking a little bit about the financial side of partnerships, and funding is often highlighted when corporate partnership opportunities come up. And be interesting to know, what are the opportunities around non-financial support that are available, and how does this benefit companies? And if there's particular examples that the panel would like to share, I'd just like to start by asking Karen if maybe you have some examples of initiatives that you've been involved with.
Sure. So most recently, we've had the Bayside Centre here in Victoria, based out at Frankston. It's an 89,000 square metre centre, and the COVID vaccination hub in partnership with Peninsula Health was launched in July. A really exciting community innovation for us, because our centres are regarded community hubs and attract, that centre in particular attracts 13 million visitors each year. So having that 2,900 square metres of temporary retail space to offer that value-add service for 2,200 vaccinations per day of the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the AstraZeneca is a great sort of augmentation of the community aspect of coming together in one destination, and being able to provide additional services in the community. So casual mall leasing at peppercorn rates is something that vicinity centres offer around the country, around our 60 centres, and through the concierge teams, the guest experience team. So it's good business, to have these, community partnerships, and ours with the Red Cross is starting to really blossom with Christmas as well. Sort of the fundraising and the leverage potential. Where 19 of our centres are, selling Christmas cards and at the desks, and inviting visitors to support families through that initiative. So there's some great things happening, despite sort of how difficult it's been. I think people are really sort of hungry to connect, in different ways, and to give.
Certainly some very unique opportunities that have come up in the last couple of years, that's for sure. around that non-financial support. Is there anyone else that would like to add some areas that are non-financial support that have been interesting in your partnerships?
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think non-financial support, if I could use an example. So we've got a really fantastic community investment partnership with the Australian Indigenous Education Foundation. So what started off as a partnership in providing scholarships for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids to attend secondary school to boarding school, that was sort of the pinnacle and sort of fundamental part of the program, and it's sort of implemented around our operations and across Australia. But that's really grown through I think through the active partnership management approach and sort of working with AIEF to sort of identify other opportunities, and that's grown in a couple of other areas. And one is mentoring, so non-financial support. We have some South 32 employees mentoring some of the students, and that's been absolutely positive. I mean, it's definitely you have both the mentor and the mentee. You receive a lot of benefit in that relationship. I mean, it's been really great for our staff to be connected to the program. It's been great for cultural awareness and competency building, and just again sort of connection to that South 32 purpose. So the mentoring program, and again, we're just putting the call out for more mentors this year, and we're getting some really positive uptake in that. So so we've got the mentoring program. We also get participants from the program to come in for sort of lunch and learns into the office, online, sort of virtual, or in person around National Reconciliation Week and sort of other weeks. So we've been really able to leverage the partnership there. And then lastly, we've just over the last 6 months started to work with AIEF on employment pathways. So aiming to kick off an intern program in the Perth office here for some of their alumni who are typically sort of second or third year at university to come into and do an intern program. And really, the whole objective there is sort of pipeline of employment and building out opportunities through that. I guess lastly, one of the other partnerships would be exploring opportunities to rally the staff at South 32 and donate items and sort of some things to the to the charity organisation. So the sort of non-financial bits really been really important to us.
Fantastic. Melissa, I know that you've just embarked on a new partnership, and if you're happy to share something around the sort of innovation that's bringing to partnerships and leveraging that sort of in the real world context, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. So we have just embarked on a new partnership. So I guess right back at the beginning, we undertook an exercise to try and identify a key social theme around which to build a community investment program for QIC global real estate. So I guess we did that, was very sort of evidence-based process that we followed, and we really looked at socio-demographics information surrounding our centres, and tried to understand what might be some of the social themes playing out in and around our shopping centres. So we undertook that piece, and we also, as part of that, it was about what's prevalent around in those local communities and playing out at our centres, but equally, what are we actually well positioned to respond to as a business? And I think that having really good alignment with your business and the social theme that you're focused on is key to being able to drive significant change through the partnership. I think it's about having good alignment with the company's business model. So essentially the activities that the company does to make money and the types of things available on offer from the company to the charity aside from money. So we've talked a little bit about that earlier, things like skills and provision of space and that might be of interest or value to the community organisation, or the organisational relationships that are available via the company that could be of interest to the community partner. But I think key here is for community partners wanting to partner with corporates is that in the non-financial space, the value of the non-financial things that are on offer, such as space, need to sort of be beyond fundraising opportunities, I think, and really, you know, the value being on offer to the corporate. I talked about sort of 2 value streams earlier around value to the recipients of the community investment program through the partnership, but also value back to the corporate, needs to be directed at either solving a problem that's having an impact on the corporate's business, or is able to sort of further enhance a business opportunity or something important to the business, like customer experience. So that's how we sort of arrived at the focus of our community investment program, which is on physical health and wellbeing through that lens. We then worked with Good to Give to try and we embark on a partnership search to identify an appropriate community partner. And we did develop up a theory of change to help us with that, so that we could identify ahead of time the change we felt that we could create for
It'd be great
recipients.
if you can explain that a bit, more, because I think a lot of charities look at the theory of change and it's not something that's familiar to them. So.
Yeah, of course. So and our theory of change, I guess, includes 2 main theories, one being the value we believe we can create in that broader community around physical health and wellbeing, and secondly, the value we think we can deliver back to our business. So, so having that theory of change early in the piece, before we even set out on our partnership search, was really important for us in helping to identify the type of partner that could help us deliver what we set out to achieve. It also allowed us to think about what we had to offer, you know, so including and beyond our financial contributions, so things like our time and space and our assets, and perhaps space on our media screens, and then really identify how these financial and non-financial offerings could be utilised towards the social theme we'd chosen, so being physical health and wellbeing in an impactful and meaningful way. So we then, through that theory of change, we then started to think about the types of programs we could support with a community partner, and we felt that a focus on physical activity, as well as a focus on healthy eating, they were sort of the 2 streams that we felt that we were well positioned to respond to as a business. So that was where we focused, you know, our community partnership search on organisations that were able to offer programs to be delivered in and around our centres with those 2 focus areas, I guess. And then we were able to, from that, identify how we thought we could measure the change we believed we could create through a focus on those types of programs. And that enabled us to really, when we were interviewing our potential community partners, to understand what types of measurement frameworks they already had in place, so that we could see how well we would be able to measure the impact, which was really important to us. So you know, that theory of change has been really central for us to really work through the change we think we can create. Also, having then chosen our community partner, it's allowed us to work through the development of our partnership framework, which we're doing at the moment with our community partner. And it's allowed us to be really clear in our expectations of them and vice versa, so that everyone's clear from the outset what we're collectively setting out to try and achieve.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks, Melissa. I'm sure that a lot of people listening in will find that really useful to understand what the theory of change means and means to your organisation. I know we're getting close to the end of our time, and we've got questions coming through quite quickly, so I'd like to make sure we get some time to talk to those. So I might just start taking a few of them for the panel, and I can either direct them or I might open it up to everyone to nominate who would like to speak. There's one question that seems to be coming through fairly consistently at the moment. Are there any ways to engage with your companies if we don't necessarily fit within certain focus areas? And I'll leave it to anyone who would like to answer that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You go.
I was just going to say, I mean, yes, I think the answer is yes, there are. But I think that certainly from my perspective, expect there to be less focus on that engagement, because it's more likely to be short-lived and once off. If it's not sort of aligned to if an organisation has a sort of key social theme around which they're structuring their community investment program, that's what they'll be focusing their measurement on. Because that's part of the reason for being quite focused on a particular social theme where you as an organisation think that you can deliver the most significant change, because measurement of the value that you're creating comes at a cost. So having many focus areas, firstly, doesn't allow you to be really focused and drive significant and put all of your efforts towards a particular theme. So it distracts your effort, but equally you're not able to measure the change that you're creating if you've got too many different focus areas. So I think that there are ways to engage, but they might not be as deep and impactful as if you're engaging because you have an alignment with an organisation's key social theme. That would be my take on it, but there are ways to engage.
Thanks, Mel. Karen or Shane, I think you were both interested in answering that one as well.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think you have a crack. Just no harm in sort of reaching out and having the conversation, and an exploratory, non-committal conversation, seeing if there is a good fit. But yeah, a bit the same for South 32. I mean, we have 4 key themes for our community investment around education, leadership, natural resource resilience, economic participation, and good health and social well-being. So I guess from those, you can see that already is reasonably broad, and there's quite a lot of different programs that can fit into that. But I suppose an example of one that that doesn't, and that we were approached recently was in the arts space, just not a good fit with our theme, something we didn't pursue. I guess just to sort of add to the conversation, I mean, the 4 themes, we have spent a lot of work over the years with our various stakeholders, and particularly the communities of where we operate, to identify those 4 themes, so that they to make sure that they are aligned with the local priorities of the people and the organisations where we operate. So I guess I would say a lot of work has gone into that and into landing the themes. But there's if I get approached by organisations which are outside that theme, I always take a look at them and have the conversation, because you never know where it might lead to, or there might be might be something else that organisation does which is of interest, or there might be another or it might end up being a good fit. So I'd just say have the conversation.
Great, thanks, Shane. Karen, did you want to add to that?
Sure. So at Vicinity, our primary focus area is around youth, but it's also been broadened to include strengthening communities and building more resilient communities, in the neighbourhoods in which we operate. So that's pretty broad, and our centres are encouraged to cultivate local partnerships, beyond the primary partnership we have, with Red Cross. And, so that's our primary one where, a lot of the measurement and evaluation happens. But we recognise that, our centres, naturally have an affinity with, local groups, and that's certainly encouraged as well. So it's very much about the values alignment and, I guess, the benefit, the mutual benefit for both parties, and what social impact that can generate. And as far as measurement goes, that is very much on the primary relationship, but looking at sort of other ways that the information can be evaluated and assessed through tertiary partnerships and other independent studies.
Thanks, Karen. That leads really nicely into another question we have here from participants. Articulating and reporting on measurable outcomes is a challenge for charities. It's very common for there to be a gap between what charities provide and what corporates are looking for. How do corporates support charities to better explain and report on measurable impacts? Danielle, have you, or Karen?
Thanks, Chris.
That's right.
That is a That is a very hard one, and I was very interested to hear. I think, Shane, what you were saying about the framework that you've developed, because I'm not sure that there is anyone that could say that they've totally nailed the social impact measurement and tracking, because it can be really different for different charities. I think that having a very frank and open conversation at the very beginning of the partnership is really important. Just put on the table, this is what our capabilities are at both sides, and this is what we're hoping to see. Having that conversation up front means that, when you get down the track after having donated for 12 months or whatever the period might be that you've set for the relationship, means that there won't be a bit of confusion at the end. But I think that there's also plenty of corporate organizations who are wanting to donate to organizations to create a particular change for that organization. It might not necessarily be the social impact, but it's actually making that charity better, like helping their operating systems as opposed to the end recipient, so that charity can continue to help. So I think that it's just important to have those conversations around the expectations up front, because there could be a gap, like you say, in between what a charity can provide and what the corporates expect.
Fantastic. Thanks, Danielle. Melissa, did you want to add anything on that one?
Yeah, look, I think, we talked about the theory of change earlier, and I think having that up front and being really clear about, like, before you even sort of embark on your community search, because you'll already start to have an idea of how you're going to measure impact. And, it might be, like, some things are really easy to measure, and it might be that you've decided that you're going to measure impact through surveying program recipient, people who have participated in the program, and everyone can do that, and then it's about the conclusions that you might draw from the information that you're getting. So you have to think about how you word those surveys and how you might then be able to draw conclusions through sort of a social return on investment type study. But I think you should be able to find things that you can easily do and that you can measure, that you can draw conclusions from, that are either mature or less mature, but it's just making sure that you've been really clear right from the beginning around what they are and how you might start to draw conclusions from them, so that you're collecting the right information right from the beginning. But I think it's, you can do that off a really mature or a less mature base. It just means perhaps that if it's less mature, that the corporate needs to step in and facilitate that social return on investment piece at year 2 or 3 of the partnership, to understand the value that you've started to create, if they're less mature mechanisms that you're measuring.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. We have another question here. What would you say is the key factor you look for when choosing which charities to engage with? So the key factor. Karen, you happy to answer this one? Or start?
Sure. I think one of the important factors is the opportunity for our staff to be involved and to engage in various volunteering opportunities. We recently did a workplace giving survey of the staff, and what was very clear coming out of the feedback coming out of that was that people wanted to volunteer, be it online or face-to-face and in person, sort of as restrictions are eased, that people are craving that connection, and particularly in team-based volunteering. So we're looking at sort of how we can build that into our volunteering opportunity and program that's offered by the company. And so I guess we're finessing it as we go to some extent, but staff engagement is a big one.
Great. Shane, is that similar for you, or is this a different approach in your organisation? The key factor?
Yeah, so many factors. Look, I think you had to boil it down to sort of maybe 1 or 2 key factors. They're looking for a charity, an organisation that can really clearly articulate their vision and purpose. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be sort of written down in a full sort of impact and outcome measurement framework, but just to be really clearly articulate what change they're setting out to affect. And I think, and track record as well. Like typically we will partner with organisations that have got a demonstrable track record that can show to us that they can achieve what they set out to achieve. But that said, we also have partner with and continue to do so with organisations that are only just starting out or but are a good fit, and we just make a decision to sort of work together and take a bit of a risk sometimes. But typically those sort of things, the track record and that really clear articulation of what they're trying to achieve.
Great. Danielle, is there anything that's key factors that you're choosing a charity to engage with?
I think similar to Karen, as I said before, staff engagement's been key for us, but I think what Melissa has been talking about with the theory of change is going to be more important moving forward to know exactly what you're trying to achieve through the partner relationship. So whether it might not be a significant social change, but what impact are you hoping to have? For us, our key focus is obviously our focus areas, but it's also creating equal access to opportunity. So making sure that we're bridging the gap between regional and metro, but given locational isolation, but also isolation by circumstances. So trying to bridge people's circumstances that might isolate them and find a way to support that. So for us, that's what the key is, and that's how we sort of determine who our charity partners are.
Fantastic. Mel, did you have anything to add? The key factors that you're looking for? You probably covered a lot of this off beforehand.
I think so. Just quickly, I think alignment to, like, if an organisation has a focus on a particular social theme, being able to demonstrate alignment and how you can, as a charity, help move the dial on that particular theme will put you in great stead, because as Karen also mentioned earlier, we also encourage our centres to engage with partners beyond the sort of flagship partner, but particularly in with organisations that are focused on that physical health and wellbeing, which is our focus area. So, and I think for charities looking for partners to engage with, I would encourage you to actively seek out organisations that are focused on, with their community investment programs, focused on the types of areas that you're working to drive change towards, because I think you'll have a more productive conversation.
Thanks, Mel. That's really important. I've got another question here. Are there any upcoming projects from your charity relationships that you can share or that you're excited about? This might stimulate some participants on this session to think about ways that they can work with corporates as well. Shane, have you got anything at the moment that you're involved with?
One, which was super excited about, and that's in the family and domestic violence space. So just a lot of engagement with our community stakeholders over the last sort of 12 or so months. Impacts of COVID on family and domestic violence have just been really felt in a lot of the communities and areas where we operate, which is incredibly sad and something that we thought we could therefore respond to by developing partnerships in this space. So we've got a global strategy working with our operations in a whole bunch of different locations to develop locally based partnerships. In Western Australia, we've just formed a partnership with the Patricia Giles Centre for Non-Violence. Super excited about it because it's not only providing funding for the work that they do, but then we've also had that organisation working with our human resources department around policies in that space. There's some employee engagement. We've got the 16 days of campaign of stopping domestic and family violence, which is an international campaign, and we've got our community organisation coming into the office to speak to our staff. And so just I think a great example of doing more than just the financial donation. So super excited about that one.
Fantastic. Danielle, do you have any examples that are happening at the moment or have happened that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, thank you. We the marketing team will be happy that I'm able to to give it a plug. But as I mentioned before, we've recently launched our Young Money, which is a financial literacy toolkit. It's as I said, it's an online toolkit for young people to help with, those very early stages of adulthood. And we've also created a podcast as well, just sort of 10-minute podcasts on various topics, what to do for your first interview, saving for a house, budgeting, those types of things. And we're actually starting to work on season 2 for that now as well, for that Young Money podcast, but also looking to launch a very similar program for New Zealand. So we're really trying to help with financial literacy. It really makes sense for us, being a financial services organisation, to be able to share our network of people. But it's not just people within the business that we get on the podcast. There are externals as well. So we're really excited about it.
Great. I might be looking up that budgeting one if I'm not too old to look at that. Karen, have you got any projects that are coming up that you'd like to share?
Sure. I mentioned earlier our focus on youth. So that's with our primary partner, Red Cross. And as the work experience placements happen from February onwards, we've actually engaged a social enterprise provider to help bring those stories to life. The product's called Folktale, and the participants and all that are touched and involved by the placement can share their insights. It's just like a snippet recording on their phone, and we're hoping to stitch it together and I guess share those learnings more broadly, because people are interested, but they don't always get to see or hear. And so using technology to spread the word is really exciting, and it's a bit of a pilot for us.
It's fantastic. Thanks, Karen. And I know, Melissa, your partnership is literally just commencing, so you haven't got anything to talk to at the moment. Is there anything that excites you for the next 12 months that you...
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. I think you're quite right. We're just starting to work through our partnership framework with our brand new partners, which we only selected a few weeks ago now. So, but I think, our partners they presented a joint partnership option or expression of interest to us. It's YMCA and Nutrition Australia. So we're looking at rolling out programs focused on healthy eating and physical activity. So I think, I spoke earlier about value back to the organisation, back to the corporate. And the thing probably I didn't give a very good example of. So there's obvious benefits to the community through programs focused on healthy eating and more physical activity. But the thing I think that where those programs benefit us is that it'll allow us to showcase some of our retailers perhaps through, shopping tours, for example. So Nutrition Australia can take a shopping tour group through the sort of fresh food marketplace and, talk about or educate around the what types of foods are quite healthy and not, and that showcases some of our retailers. But equally, I think some of the running sort of entry-level physical activity classes within the centre, you start to attract people that wouldn't just boldly go up and buy a gym membership, but they sort of are introduced to exercise and then possibly become a feeder for some of the gyms in our centres. So I'm really excited about that connectivity between our retailers and benefiting the community with our community program as we work through that partnership framework.
Thanks so much, Mel. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up here. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Shane, Melissa, Karen and Danielle for providing some of your valuable insights and your breadth of knowledge across your various programs today, particularly around the charity engagement from a corporate perspective. And thank you to everyone who's joined the session. And we trust that you've been able to take away some insights that will help you build sustainable and successful partnerships that enable you to deliver your amazing programs in our communities. So thank you very much.